let's get into some current sports. This past Monday, we're filming on a Wednesday, by the way. Uh, Alabama Nick Saban wins his seventh NCAA championship, or national championship. I'm thinking wrestling, that's what they call it. 52-24 win over the Ohio State Buckeyes. I feel like this has a lot of impact on the Patriots draft, as Belichick could be looking to get an Alabama player. So I want to turn it over to Jordan here. And we were talking a little bit before we started shooting, and you said, "Oh, prepare to hear a lot of bad things about Mac Jones." So time has come. Let's hear those things that you got to say about Mr. Jones.
So we hear system quarterback a lot, right? With especially being Patriots fans, all right? And if you define system quarterback, it's literally just that. The system is built for the quarterback, and he can't succeed in any other, with another coach, with other players, whatever it may be. Mac Jones was surrounded all season with a Heisman finalist running back, with maybe the best college defense ever. It's been proclaimed as that, and the Heisman winner in Devontae Smith. Not to mention he had Jalen Waddle, who got injured early on in the season, but was proclaimed to be a Heisman, finalist at the end of the season as well. So for me personally, Greg Bedard put out a statement, or he had something in an article today. He pretty much explained it perfectly. He said he's surrounded by talent. He's got the best coach in college football history coaching him. He doesn't have that great of an arm. He's the dink and dunk type of quarterback that's kind of getting phased out of the game. And if you look at the Alabama quarterbacks from the past 20 years, you have Jalen Hurts and Tua are the only two QBs in the past 20 years that have any success so far. And even Tua looks a little bit iffy in his rookie year. So if you're taking, you have two QBs in the past 20 years from Bama that have succeeded in the NFL, I'm not taking that chance at 15, especially. I'm not taking that chance at all. But the people that are saying to draft him at 15, I think it's ridiculous. As for the other guys, I mean, I think we're all in the same boat. If Smith is there, I don't think he'll be there after his performance, but you take him. And then, I mean, any of the other guys, we don't need a running back or anything. But yeah, I'm off the Mac Jones train, and I'll stay off the Mac Jones train even if we draft him. I'd rather have Jared Stidham. It's a bold statement, but I'll send it to Baz.
Jordan, I'm surprised.
Baz face lit up when he heard Stidham for our Spotify listeners right now.
I mean, I think you just hit it right in the head with Mac Jones. How many times have we seen quarterbacks that go in the first round that aren't even one or two that just kind of fizzle out or fade out? Like, it happens. I mean, it's just this offseason when it comes to the Patriots and the quarterback position, there's got to be something there, whether they draft or whether they go in the free agency, whether they make a trade. And it just feels like everyone keeps throwing these names out there, like even Zach Wilson's, Trey Lance's, Mac Jones, thinking something's going to stick on the wall. It's not. It's not going to happen. So I agree. I mean, any one of us four could have probably played at quarterback this year for Alabama and just handed the ball off or just did a little quick pass over to Smith and you'd end up winning a national title. So it really shows that he hasn't proved anything in terms of, maybe certain comebacks or, the thing with Alabama too is you're never really down in games. You never have to prove yourself. Maybe it happens once or twice a year. You're never getting into that spot where you're just down and out and you have to crawl out of it. I think I was saying that about recently, say like Lamar Jackson last year, how good Baltimore was. Like, they haven't faced adversity. Like, that's the thing is, like, has Mac Jones faced adversity at all this season? Do you know what he's like when it's like a 2-minute drill and run the 2-minute offense? Like, that's the things that you want to see. You don't see that out of Mac Jones. And I think you're right. He's probably going to dip far. Like, I don't think he's first round, probably end of the first round. And I think it's going to shock a lot of casuals. But if you have a brain, you're going to be like, well, he's just going to be a backup. Like, that's all it is. And again, too, I say this on the other show. I'm not much of a college guy, but the only two people that most likely, and I think Justin Fields now is kind of down on my radar too, like and push him off to the side, especially his performance down the stretch. The only person that really should be starting next year as a first round draft pick is Trevor Lawrence. So he's the clear cut. He's going to start week 1. Everybody else is a backup in my mind. And whether they end up getting a chance later in the season, like Justin Herbert this past year, he got a chance right away, luckily. But he might have not started until midway through the season. A lot of these quarterbacks are not starting until midway through the season. So if you want to spend your 15th pick on Mac Jones, And especially when it comes to Bill Belichick, that kid ain't starting at all this year. That kid's not doing a single goddamn thing this year. And I do hope that Smith falls to 15. You got to take him at 15. But like you said, his performance has been so top notch. He went absolutely bananas in the national title game. So I don't know what the Pats are going to do with the 15th pick now. It's just like, what do you do? Like what's in? It's just going to be Belichick. I'll take best available, and that's what it's going to end up being.
Yeah, I think, looking at Mac Jones, I think Belichick's a pretty good scout when it comes to quarterbacks. You got Jimmy G, you got Brissett, obviously you got Brady. That's kind of an exception. But, Mac Jones is a guy, like you said, just hasn't faced any adversity. You have Jalen Hurts, even like another Alabama quarterback. He had to transfer, and then he had to sit behind Carson Wentz. He got thrust into the role. He actually kind of looked pretty good as a starter, but, that's a guy who's kind of had to go through a little adversity in his career. But, Mac Jones, like you said, Babs, I could have thrown for whatever 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns behind that team because, Alabama's just year in, year out. They're always, so great. So I feel like the Patriots should definitely go with a guy like Devontae Smith, maybe Jalen Waddle, if they're available because, as we know, what good is a quarterback without any weapons? We've seen it with Cam Newton. We've seen it with Brady the year before. Mac Jones isn't a guy who's going to go from star-studded Alabama into a Patriots team with Jacoby Myers as their number one and, succeed. So definitely looking to take a skill position there, I'd say, at receiver or tight end.
And before you jump in, Anthony, I just want to say one thing about the receivers. There's a lot of talk about people thinking all three, the Waddle, Chase, and Smith are all going to go before 15. I can't see three receivers going in the top 15. So I think one of them will be there. Because a lot of people are like, well, the Bengals could take one, and then all these team needs wide receivers. But when do you see the team need, they always take the number one team need. Someone's going to throw a wild card in there, and then someone's slipping. So Belichick will have his opportunity, whether he takes it or not. I mean, we all pumped up to take, Patrick Queen or whoever last year, and he moves all the way back and disappoints all of us who sat there for 2 hours to watch it. So.
Yeah, I'm projecting that Jalen Waddle goes 15 just because there's so much in question. Babs even brought up Justin Fields before. I think he's going to slip to 14 to Minnesota. I like see
really?
The hot takes on.
If he slips to 14, I'll be pissed because I want to. I mean, I'm an OSU fan, so I'd love to see him on the Pats. But
if he even gets out of the top 5, I'd say someone's definitely trading up to take him because even though he's had some shaky performances, that's a guy outside of Trevor Lawrence, he's by far the best prospect in this class at the quarterback position.
Yeah, that's something that he could end up slipping. I think he definitely has to slip. I mean, now you look at yourself and you're the New York Jets, and you're just like, this kid, I'd rather just stick with Sam Darnold. That's my opinion, but I just think that, Justin Fields really wasn't good down the stretch, and his numbers show it. So what's the point of even doing that? And that's a whole other topic, but I thought the Jets are actually in a good spot not being number one, because they can keep Sam Darnold. They get a new coaching system in there, and that number 2 pick is very valuable that they can trade down. They can get some assets off of it. I think they can do a quick rebuild around in New York if they trade that away. We've seen it plenty of times in the past where teams will give up a lot just to move up. But the more that Justin Fields falls, and I could see other teams, Atlanta, Carolina, they pass. Like he could fall to 6, 7. There's got to be a point where it's like you can't let him fall too much. Like he's going to be the second quarterback off the board. Makes it interesting for the New England Patriots though, because you're like, all right, well maybe we can trade up to 6, maybe we can trade up to 7 or 8, and we can snag them there. Something that I'm adamant on is this for the Pats QB situation. We're just going to talk about QB at number 15 here for any college kid. I see them going into one or two ways. So one way over here is that you're taking a already NFL caliber quarterback and you put him on the New England Patriots. Jimmy Garoppolo, Matt Stafford, Carson Wentz, Dak Prescott, who I was kind of saying that could be looked at as well too, right? That's one area, right? And most of those players, I look at it after talking about this for the last few weeks, I'd rather just keep Cam Newton because the guy knows the playbook. He knows the players, knows the system, already has that chemistry. Because if you're going this free agency route or trade route that you bring somebody in here, they still have to catch up with all the teammates. With COVID still going on right now, you're not going to have a lot of practice time with them. So I'd rather that's the only time I'll stick with Cam Newton. On the opposite side, what we're talking about right now is that Stidham is your QB1 technically. He's on the roster. He's your guy. They should draft a Justin Fields. They should get a Trey Lance. They should get a Zach Wilson, because then you have Stidham and then you have that QB that you take in the first round. and you go to Stidham and say, hey, this is your last chance. And hopefully that pushes Stidham into the right direction, that it leads him. It's like that little Garoppolo-Brady thing. It's like Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers. That's the competition you want to have within there, because you know they're going to invest time in that QB in the first round, whoever it is. Let's just say it's Trey Lance, right? They're going to invest time into him and say, hey, we're going to give you the tools to succeed here. You're not going to start this year. You might get some time later in the season. You never know. And it might push Stidham out the door completely, or it makes Stidham step up. They go to the playoffs, and then you still have Stidham for another year. You know, these quarterbacks can take a couple of years to develop. It doesn't mean it has to happen right away. That's what I would love to see, though. I would love to see them grab a first-round talent quarterback, but not start him right away. Let Stidham either shit the bed or actually step up and do something. And guess what, guys? You're only spending like $3 million, like total, into that QB position. I think Belichick also has to think about that too. Do you want to go out and get Jimmy Garoppolo for $20 million a year? Do you want to get Stafford for $20 million? Do you want to spend that money in that position to have someone come in and learn the new playbook and not have that same chemistry, or just go really young? And that's what I hope that Bill Belichick ends up doing. I also think they should go for Jameis Winston too.
I love Jameis Winston. I love that.
He's just a cheap camp body. That's all it is. Bring him in for camp. Same contract like Cam Newton. Hey, if you end up becoming the starter, here is your incentives. Like we'll give you $1 million base, 1.5, but you can earn up to like 10 million, and this is how you can do it. So you're getting hungry Jameis Winston now in camp as well too. So you have Jameis Winston, who needs to prove himself, who's a former first-round pick, right? He was
number one pick,
number one,
right? So you have him. Then you have Stidham, who's been a 2-year guy under Brady and Cam Newton, had Brian Hoyer, and they gave him the tools, and he fucked it up. And then you have the quarterback who got drafted in the first round this year. So say it's Trey Lance. That's a good competition going into camp, isn't it? Don't you think so? Because it's anybody's game pretty much to take over there. So that's what I really hope that comes out of this quarterback's position for the New England Patriots.
I love what you're saying there, because like there's no better way to get the absolute best out of your quarterback than by bringing in another QB. You see it with, we drafted Garoppolo, and Brady. I think that kind of lit a fire under his ass. He kind of went on a little tear. You saw that with Aaron Rodgers this year, having over 50 total touchdowns when they drafted Jordan Love in the first round. That pissed him off. So if you want to push Stidham, if you want to, draft a guy, maybe see what he's got, you have to kind of draft a quarterback in the first round here in order to basically get the best out of your team. Because if your quarterback's not playing well, as we saw with Cam Newton, you're not going anywhere. It really doesn't matter. So you might as well look towards the future, and either you got your guy in Stidham, who hasn't really had a fair shot in his first 2 years, or you draft this quarterback who, even if he doesn't perform well, if he gets thrust into a starting role, first-round quarterbacks always have draft value for a couple of years, or always have trade value for a couple of years, because they're so young, they're raw, they can be developed, and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
just like Josh Rosen.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. He still really hasn't gotten a fair shot, to be quite honest.
No, but I think I hope that fans. I think it's a good take. I think that having a 3-headed monster that's competing with each other. Now, you say Stidham starts week 1 just based on the playbook, this and that. That doesn't mean his job's secured for the entire season. He'd have Jameis Winston. Does Jameis Winston want to ride the bench 2 straight years? Or you have the third guy, say Mac Jones, like. He's gonna keep learning, and he's gonna learn under these 2 guys. And be like, I'm gonna take over. Like that's what I want. I want that internal competition. And you're only spending now. If you bring Jameis in the equation, you're spending like $5 million in that position alone. And you have 3 guys that need to prove something. I look at Jimmy Garoppolo. What does he have left to prove? Does he want to even come back here? That's the thing. Is everyone says like, oh, we can get Matt Stafford. Does Matt Stafford want to play in the cold in December and possibly January? Does he want to play for Bill Belichick, who's gonna ride his ass all the time? Like that's another underlying thing that I feel like not a lot of people are talking about is, do quarterbacks want to come to New England and play in New England? Do they want to play in the weather? Do you want to play with this media? You know how bad the media is here.
Yeah.
Do you want to play with all that shit? You make one mistake, you're done and you're down and out. Like look at Cam Newton all year. He's dealt with bullshit from myself, but also from the media. So it's just, do you want that? And it's tough. So I hope they go the young way, because guess what? If you don't go young, and you go get Matt Stafford, and you have Stidham, and you have a no name for your third quarterback, and Stafford stinks and Stidham stinks, you're screwed again. And now you have to wait another 2 to 3 years. They have to get a quarterback for this draft, whether that's first or second round. Like they have to do that.
Well, you're talking about, not to like kind of interrupt either you guys. I don't know if you're going to go, but I mean, getting an older quarterback just doesn't fit the timeline of this team. This team's not ready to contend for a Super Bowl at all. if you get Stafford, by the time the rest of your team's kind of caught up with him, we have some holes on defense, we have some other holes on offense. By the time the rest of the team's caught up with him, Stafford's going to be 36, 37, and not the majority of quarterbacks do not last that long, are not that good past the age of 35. So you really want to get a young guy. Like if you don't draft a quarterback here, you have to hit on another skill position or on defense. You have to really hit here because we've seen a lot of fans get pretty pissy at Belichick for his drafting woes over the past 10 years. He hasn't drafted a Pro Bowler since Jamie Collins in 2013, who's not even on the team anymore. So you have to hit here if you really want to satisfy the fan base too. Rob Kraft is putting pressure on him to kind of get a good pick here.
That's why I'm like the Jameis Winston type, because he's still somewhat young. Like he's under the age of 30, so you can still get something out of him. And I know that you can look at like a Carson Wentz. And it seems like today now with Peterson out of there, they don't want to get rid of Carson Wentz. They want to bring a new coach in and try to stick with Carson Wentz. And his name has been tied to Indianapolis anyways. But that's why I looked at Dak Prescott, because he's still young as well too. And all depending on his leg injury, I think this is a perfect opportunity for the Dallas Cowboys to move on from him. Because I don't think Dak's truly a winner. And he hasn't really – he's great during the season. Don't get me wrong. But it's just I feel like that offense is built ready to make a run for the playoffs. And there's so many different quarterbacks that we're all talking about. They all fit well. I would love to see Jimmy G in Dallas. I think that's a perfect fit for him. I think Cam Newton could be someone that can go to Dallas as well too. I mean – you just don't know what Dak Prescott. So you don't know what that injury is going to tell and what's his value now. So could you get Dak Prescott on the cheap? Like, could you be like, all right, we'll give you a 1-year deal or a 2-year deal.
That's the steal of the century.
And he's got something to prove too, Dak Prescott. And now he gets to be coached with Bill Belichick. He's still kind of on that younger age. That's the only guy I would take like that on the outside of an NFL caliber ready quarterback that could come in here and actually could make a difference right away.
Now, you talk about Dak Prescott, right? And he's a free agent going into this offseason, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so you bring in a guy like him. Is he going to want to come to the New England Patriots? Because look at what they've done all year. The Josh McDaniels play calling, I don't think is appealing to any quarterback in the league right now. They're not going to want to run the dink and dunk type thing with Jacoby Myers being your number one guy. Yes, I know he was ranked in the top 25, or I don't even know what the hell website. Babs posted it earlier today. But you think, like, this is the perfect opportunity. You get a guy, you bring in a new young quarterback, and you sell, like, who's a free agent this offseason in terms of wide receiver? Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson's name is being thrown all over the place. So say you draft a guy like Trey Lance. That's your pitch right there. Hey, we got this new young quarterback. Your quarterbacks have been shit over the course of your entire year. Here's a new start right here. This is going to give you a career renaissance right here. And it only makes sense to go quarterback just to make that selling point so much easier to bring guys in.
Yeah.
I think people don't talk. Oh, go ahead, Jordan.
No, I was just going to say something about Jameis Winston. We're talking about QBs. I kind of look at Winston as a little bit like how Josh Allen was a couple of years ago. He has a great arm, one of the best in the league. He's no problem throwing 400, 500 yards a game, and no problem throwing 30, 40 touchdowns, but it's the picks it's the turnovers that everyone's having a problem with. And if you look at Josh Allen over the years, I think his rookie year, he was a 1-to-1. Year after that, he was a 2-to-1, and then now he's into a 3-to-1. So if you can, fix Winston up a bit and tell him, like, just slow down with the picks and the turnovers, if you can develop him to half of what Josh Allen is, I mean, that's a win in itself.
Anthony, right there. Jameis Winston could be a selling point for a free agent wide receiver. Say,
Absolutely.
Hey, we're bringing this guy in, and he just threw like 33 touchdowns 2 years ago, and he's going to throw the ball. Like, that's what he does. We're going to bring him in here. Not saying he's a starter, because he has to earn his job just like everyone else has to earn their job when they come in here. But we are signing him to our team, and Jameis Winston is a likable guy. Like, people like him. I mean, and you're going to bring him into that locker room. He's a half vet. Like, he's been in the league for a couple of years. So that's what's good right now is that how young this team is. And I think Cam Newton he really truly was a bridge guy, because he's helping out a lot of these older guys that are still on the team, like the McCourtys and the James White and the Julian Edelmans, to keep them satisfied. But right now you have such a young core ready to go, and they should go very, very young on the quarterback position.
Yeah. Now Winston is very appealing to, like you said, wide receivers like Allen Robinson. You're in Chicago. They don't throw the ball mainly because they can't. Nobody in Chicago can really throw the ball past 10 yards. But Winston, even though he threw 30 picks, he also threw 33 touchdowns, 5,000 yards. That's good if you're trying to get your payday for your next contract too. So a lot of free agents,
it's bananas that Cam Newton got a shot over him. Like that's what
right. No, 100%. I mean, the other thing is like Winston couldn't see. Like he got eye surgery over the offseason. Like he probably couldn't see 20 yards down the field, and he threw for 5,000 yards. So I can't believe that. You bring in a guy like Newton, who's very marketable, granted, but like Winston, I think clearly has more upside. He's younger. He actually has an arm, a shoulder that works. Like any guys like that are marketable and can bring some upside to your team are guys that you want to pursue this offseason for sure.
He's hungry. I mean, I love that Cam Newton because like I said this for both Jameis Winston and Cam Newton right after the draft. I was like, it's crazy. Both of them didn't have a job after the draft. I'm like, I can't believe this. And Jameis got picked up first, but he's the third quarterback on the New Orleans Saints. It's like, hey, kid, you're getting paid $1 million to just ride the pine this year. Like, don't worry about it. So, I mean, we talk about hungry and motivation. So this is the thing about the quarterback position. Tom Brady, right? Everyone's always going to get compared to him. No one's going to have that passion, that like fire. Like, you need that in that quarterback position. Cam Newton, as you saw this year, the offseason, he's like, I'm hungry. I'm ready to do this. And then the first 3 games, you're like, okay, like, this is cool. And then it just went south. And every time they were losing, his body language just shows. He just doesn't want to pick up his team. Jameis Winston's in the spot where it's like, this could be your last chance in the NFL. Just like Cam Newton, like I give him credit for sticking it out 15 out of the 16 games. He would have played all 16 if he had to. Like I give Cam Newton credit because he's still trying. He's trying his best, although his best isn't what it used to be. All right. Jameis Winston didn't have a down year, didn't like get totally hurt or anything like that. The guy threw for 5,000 yards and 33 touchdowns, and then all of a sudden he's a third-string quarterback. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. So that's a guy that needs to, hopefully, in his mind, hopefully him as an individual, takes that and motivates him to whatever team he ends up going to say, I still have it. I can be a top guy in the NFL.
Yeah. And last point on Winston, I'll say this. If we do end up signing him, I think the one thing you have to do is you have to get him earlier on in the offseason. Because the one thing we heard about Cam Newton is, and the one thing he said, publicly is that I wish I had more time to learn the playbook. And I don't necessarily disagree with that because I'm sure the Patriots playbook is tough to learn. And I'm sure it's completely different than any other one. So if you wait until sign Winston in May, June, then you bring him in to compete. It's like you may run into the same situation you did with Newton. So you got to get him, before right around the draft, time.
No, not even. Like they have to make a decision in March. Like they have to stick with their decision in March.
Yeah.
Once the second that free agency in the 2021 season opens up, that's the decision you make. Like, you better have the deals out there, like, right now, ready to go. Now, the whole Cam Newton thing, the door's not closed because Cam Newton's your last resort. If everything else falls through, then it falls through. You're not waiting on the draft this year. You're not dicking around or anything like that. I mean, if you looked at last year, you could say, well, in March, they were still in the books for Tom Brady's contract with $13 million. And they really did have cap space hell. Like, it's just like, we can't really make that move for a quarterback right now. We're going to go through this year. And I do think that Stidham did some stupid stuff in the offseason, enough to show, like, to Belichick that, hey, this kid's not taking it serious. That's why we have to go with Cam Newton last minute, last resort. And that's why when we look back on this 2020 Patriots season, it's just going to be a small bump in the road. You're going to see that 7-9. They were saying in some Telegram ads like 2 weeks ago. You're going to see the 7-9, and then you're going to go through all the other records. And it's just going to be a little bump in the road. That's all it's going to be, truly. But Belichick better do something right off the bat before the draft even starts. Like, you have to get somebody right away and then stick with that decision. We can't do this bullshit because you're going to need them they're probably going to have their OTAs, like, what's that, in May? So, like, they're going to end up having it this year. They're going to do it this year. The NFL will get that done, unlike last year because it was a different type of thing going on. So you need to have that decision made right away. You need to bring somebody in. That's why I say, just for Jarrett Stidham right now, I don't know what he's doing, but these 8 weeks until free agency opens up are the most important for him right now, because he better be in that fucking Gillette Stadium locker room every single day studying film, and he better be doing side sessions with some of these receivers, whoever end up staying here. Obviously not N'Keal Harry, since he shows off his new house on Instagram, but he better be working and showing at least something that Belichick can look at and be like, all right, he's kind of taking this serious. Maybe we go this way or that way.
Yeah,
that comment section was tough, by the way. I was looking at that.
Yeah, I mean, you leave yourself open to that. And I am rooting for N'Keal Harry to turn it around for a couple of reasons. Just because me and GRD got to meet him before he even stepped foot in New England in 2019. We met him in the off season in LA, and he was just very down to earth, kind of cool. Same thing with Pat's Perfect. He met Pat's Perfect, followed him back. So I know N'Keal Harry has kind of a good attitude, I did hear, so this was one of those Babs like Spike King rumors, but this came from a former Patriots player now. You can probably, I don't know who, I can't say. So it comes from a former Patriots player, and he did say that N'Keal Harry in the 2019 season had a bad attitude in the locker room. He carried himself like he was the top receiver. And the Patriots, and that's when you still have Brady on the team, and you had Edelman still, like, playing a full season. They didn't like that shit. And that's the reason why he was on the IR for that long. That's the reason why that's why they didn't activate him against the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm pretty sure he was inactive that game because that's the shit I was hearing. They're saying it's an attitude adjustment. He needed that. So I think his 2019 campaign, he just kind of hurt himself and shot himself in the foot because of his attitude, poor attitude. And then when you look at 2020, some of the things that we heard right away in training camp was he couldn't even catch his breath during training camp. They said at one point, I remember seeing the tweet, and he was hiding behind one of the poles because he was out of breath. So I feel like his offseason from 19 to 20, he didn't take it serious at all. So he's spending his money, he's showing it off, and I'm rooting for him just because I want him to prove, like, the haters and stuff, like doubters, and I'm always on that side of it. But when I talk this out now, I'm like, this kid might just not mentally be there, like, and he does not care at all. Like, that's just, he came from a small school in his own right, and he was the hot man on campus. Then he comes to the New England Patriots, which is like the best organization you can go to, and you haven't proved anything. Jacoby Myers is way better than you. That guy's more hungry to do it. But I do know that N'Keal has a certain playability. He can go up and grab the ball if you give it to him there. You saw it this year. He can go the over the shoulder, and he can go up for the ball. So I that's why I think a Jarrett Stidham would benefit as a starter for N'Keal Harry, because they already have a rapport with each other. So I'm not off the N'Keal Harry train just yet. I think you give him one more season.